Thank you, Senator Green. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I would like to use my opportunity today to add my sympathies and sentiments to the heartfelt condolences this chamber has expressed today, and I want to thank so many of my colleagues for their warm words of sympathy. And for those particularly who have not used the opportunity to speak in the chamber today for politicking or grandstanding, because I do believe that this is not the appropriate day for that. In fact, I think my contribution today will possibly be the least political speech I have ever made in this chamber, for while I genuinely and sincerely support every part of the condolence motions that have been put forward today, I want to talk specifically about the northeast of Victoria, which is a place that I have long loved and grown to know very well over recent years. The people of northeast Victoria are tough and they are proud and they are resilient, but their confidence has been shaken by the events of this summer. However, their humanity and their kindness and their community has also been galvanised. I heard many of their stories. One in particular, which is very close to my office. In fact, a young man who works in my office, Jacob Mildren, lives in the northeast of Victoria, and he spent the summer at home at his family's house and broader family's farm. And he sent us messages throughout the summer telling the whole office what was going on, and it was harrowing for us all to think that he potentially was in harm's way. So I asked him to explain his experiences to us for my contribution today. And his story went a little bit like this. He said that there was a quiet menace that turned hellish fury in the Corryong fire. He said that on the December the 30th, the air above the winding hills and valleys of the Upper Murray was in fact clear. Recent weeks of smoke haze had dissipated and it seemed like we could all breathe easy again. But when dark orange smoke plumed above the mountains, we knew that something was not right. And when the wind picked up, we realised that it was blowing in our direction and getting stronger with each hour. Even when you're prepared, there is a sense of urgency, fear and dread. We saw the four-wheeler on its way down the paddock and a message came from the farmhouse. It's time to go. Get to the house now. We did all the right things, and although much of the property was damaged and livestock lost, the house was saved. But we were the lucky ones. In the hours that followed, townships were threatened, homes were lost, and countless sheds and outbuildings were levelled. Local firefighting volunteers sprung to action, defending their community and their homes in acts of extraordinary bravery in some of the most testing conditions ever witnessed. We later learned that the fire, which was started by a lightning strike, had become so huge it had created its own weather pattern. And while we had been watching and waiting, only a few kilometres away, a tanker was caught in a fire tornado, winds so extreme that the tanker was lifted and flipped, injuring 2 firefighters and killing 28-year-old Samuel McPaul. It could have been any of us. Madam Acting Deputy President, the Upper Murray fire, like those across all of Australia, have caused such devastation. Among the stories of tragedy are stories of bravery and generosity that warm the soul left cold by senseless destruction. But it is the quiet humanity of these communities that make them stronger in the face of adversity. Individuals like Josh Collings personify this. Josh is from Cudgua, a town of just 230 people, and he lost everything. Yet despite this, within a matter of just days, Josh was one of the first to set up networks, support networks in Cudgua and its neighbouring towns to help those around him. Josh had felt firsthand the heartache of loss, and he just wanted to make it that little bit easier for those who shared those feelings. In times of strife, it's stories like these that demonstrate that the best in us really does shine through. So today, this chamber extends our sympathies to those who have lost so much, whether it be friends or family, whether it be property, homes, businesses, or a way of life. It will take time and the scars will inevitably run very, very deep. But they will rebuild and they will get the assistance that they need, and we will all play our part. When I visited the northeast just a fortnight ago, the worst was done. But the fight continued. The Incident Control Centre was calm and organised and well-resourced with professionals, with staff and with volunteers. The ADF were on hand and were cleaning up, clearing roads and consoling residents, and their presence was very welcome. I also took time to visit those communities not necessarily razed by the fires, but adjacent to them, which were greatly affected nonetheless. Small communities like Mount Beauty and Falls Creek and Rutherglen and Bright in Victoria's beautiful Alpine Valley. Now, in this peak January season, you would expect to see hikers and campers and young families and holidaymakers, but instead these communities are like picturesque ghost towns. The tourists were evacuated and they haven't returned. I met with Jake, who along with his wife own and operate the Mount Beauty Bakery. They employ additional casual staff at this time of the year over the summer period. Often they are university students that are coming home for their university holidays and work in town on their break. But this year they've had to shorten shifts. They certainly haven't thought about paying themselves or family members, but they have desperately tried to keep those casual staff on. Yet the bakery, when I was there, was empty. I don't think I've ever bought so much bread in my life. And then I met the irrepressible Jay, who owns a popular cafe that I'm sure many of you would know in Falls Creek Village. And at this time of the year, there are normally mountain bikes lined up outside her cafe for her, as riders from everywhere around stop for her very famous food. But now there is not a single one in sight. The owners of cottages, of caravan parks, of B&Bs and motels in the region spoke of empty rooms, bookings down 85% on this time last year. Madam Acting Deputy President, now is the time for rebuilding and supporting. It is not the time for politicking. There is always plenty of time in this place for that. Now is the time to reach out the hand of friendship and support to our fellow Australians in need. Now is the time for community spirit, just like Josh's, to spread across the region, and we can all play a part. Whether it be buying wine, which I know plenty of people in this place do, online, from one of the online cellar doors in Rutherglen or in the Alpine Shire vineyards, or potentially taking your family on a bike riding holiday along the rail trails, or spending a weekend at the extraordinary restaurants or craft breweries in these beautiful, beautiful towns. And this year, here's an idea for you, in Corryong, which was one of the worst towns affected by these fires. Corryong will host the 25th anniversary of the Man from Snowy River Festival, and an awful lot goes on at this festival. And all the proceeds from that festival, despite what has gone on, despite the devastation in the community, they are going to hold this thing. And despite that, all the proceeds of the event will be donated to bushfire relief. North East Victoria is open for business. They want us to reiterate that. It's open for business. These communities are proud, they're resilient, and they are really big-hearted, and they are welcoming, and they are waiting for people to come. Madam Acting Deputy President, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank some of my Victorian state parliamentary colleagues for the work on the ground during that period, particularly State Upper House member Wendy Lovell, the member for Seymour, Cindy McLeish, and particularly member for Benambra, Bill Tilley, because he's not only the member for Benambra, he's also a CFA volunteer, and he witnessed so much of this fire season firsthand, fighting on the front line for his community, both politically and physically. Bill, I take my hat off to you. The work you did this summer was quite extraordinary. Madam Acting Deputy President, to the brave men and women who risked everything, to the families that allowed them to do so, and to those who have lost so much this summer, I say thank you. It will take time to rebuild, to stitch back together what needs to be mended. and to mourn everything that has been lost. But communities in northeast Victoria and indeed around Australia in these bushfire-affected places have proven your strength in countless ways. And we in this place and all around the country will walk beside you as you heal.